Are we up? Green light, 4287, drop down 0. We're up. We're up. Good morning, gang. Back in harness. Should be a nice peaceful stream this morning. It's carving. And we're going to be using the last face, the last of the 8 faces. The Octopus print is 4 pieces of wood carved both sides. 7 of them are done. We've done our test printing, and today we start work on the last face, which is the calligraphy. Beautiful piece of wood. This wood was prepared, I don't even remember how many years ago now. I don't even remember. I wish we could get stuff like this now, but we can't do. Okay, what we're going to do is this. We're going to start the calligraphy. We're going to start up in the top right hand corner of the print. Let me get to this. You know our print, of course. The calligraphy is in the top left, huge batch in the top left. And there's a few interesting things to mention. The calligraphy, let me zoom in on this. If you've seen the previous videos we talked about books, you'll know that on all these books, the left hand page and the right hand page are on different pieces of wood and carved perhaps by different people. And it's when you zoom in on this one, you notice something interesting, that it looks like the left hand side and the right hand side were carved by different people. The calligraphy here is really quite sharp and the lines are quite thin. The calligraphy over here, all the lines are a little bit fatter and a little bit more blurred. It could be a couple of different things. It could be that the carver carved them a little bit differently. This was a different carver maybe, the carver with a bit more experience. Maybe the wood was a bit harder, he carved it a bit sharper and cleaner. Or it could be at the time of printing. Maybe the same guy carved them both, but this printer was a lot more heavy-handed and got a bit more blurred effect. And for me, it's a bit of a puzzle what to do. I don't have the original brushed calligraphy to work with. Obviously, back in the day, somebody brushed it all out, and then it was turned over to the carvers. So what we're seeing now is the carved version of the original brushed calligraphy. And I would guess the same calligrapher brushed it all together, so it would have looked unified at that time, but 2 different guys having a go at it has given us 2 different styles. And my problem now is that I have to do this all myself without access to the original calligraphy. And really there's no way around it, I think, but for me simply just to reproduce what I see. When I carve this stuff, I will try and reproduce the fatness and the shape of the lines exactly as I see it. And then when I switch over to this side, once I get that far, it'll be a sharper, more cleaner, thinner approach. I don't really have any other choice. I can't go back and recreate. I can't draw the thing myself. And it'll make a good, interesting story too, I think. I know here you're seeing a reproduction from the original. There's a black line in the middle. Our version won't have a black line. Of course, it'll just be calligraphy straight across. And it'll make a fun story to talk about, something to show up. So what I did yesterday was I brought this into Photoshop. We talked about this on the stream the other day. Let me have a look here. This is just a unedited photocopy of the original book. And you can see that the calligraphy here is printed quite lightly, and if I simply scanned this and traced it and pasted it down on the wood, it would be hard to see some of these lines. So yesterday I brought this thing into Photoshop and I used the levels command, and I brought the black up a bit. I reduced the amount of contrast in the thing, brought the black up, took out the background a bit. If you do that too much, the black starts to get fuzzy and the white starts to get, you lose your definition. So I did it to the point where it still was clear and sharp, but without losing the definition of the lines, and printed this out over at the local copy machine. And then I printed it onto thin Gampi paper. And I had a slight problem at the beginning, because it turns out that when you do the whole thing, down in the right-hand corner of the book, there's an area here where a lot of the calligraphy is really, really soft and light, and some of these lines are not, they're barely visible. And if I just pasted this on the wood, looking at it through the back, I wouldn't be able to see some of these lines. So for the moment, I'm going to leave that back right-hand corner. And what I'm going to do is later on, I'm going to blow this up even larger, trace a few of those lines, the ones that I can't see, and then shrink it back down. But to get started, what I've done is this top corner up here, this is okay. It's sharp, clean, and black. It's visible on the back. So here's what we're going to do this morning. I have the tracing that I ran off at the coffee shop yesterday. We're going to start with just the top corner here. And how do we get it into the wood in the right place? You zoom back out. I'm ignoring what you guys are saying. Did I take the paper out today? Yes, I did. Thank you very much. It's up on the 3rd floor. 4 packages are out today. So how do we know where to put this on the piece of wood? So what I did was, just a few minutes ago before the stream start, I went to the original key block and I just rubbed the back of the key block with the paper in the registration block, and I can see the lines of where this octopus is going to be. And this thing is just going to be placed. Leave the original for reference again. You really ran it really close to the edge, you know, those guys were... It's too close to the edge. Okay, there we go. All right, well, let's cut some registration marks on this wood. We have a not so good corner here, you know, that's going to be trouble for this part. Trouble for that part. Am I happy with how all of the octopus blocks have been producing images? I'm not quite sure what you mean, Ken. I'm not sure. All the blocks have been producing images. I'm sorry to be a bit denser. I'm not sure what you mean. We've done a test print so far. I've made 4 test prints. I mean, do all the blocks work? Is it coming out like it should do? Yes. I'm not sure what you mean. I'm sorry. Okay, those of you who have been here before know what's going to happen. We're going to make a short, sharp bang here because I've got to tap this chisel into the wood. We're going to make a short sound. If you've got headphones on, please be careful. I'm going to make a sharp bang with a mallet here. I'll count down to it. 3, 2, 1. End of noise. This is a nice hard piece of wood. Okay, there's our top corner of the calligraphy. I think I can go a bit higher here. Sort of ignore you guys. I'm sorry, I can't tell what's going on both here. Okay. Now there's going to be a lot of rotating and moving around because this calligraphy is every way up and down. I got to be careful. This is a sky block, and if I scratch it, I'll be in trouble. So I better put a cover. What did I do with it? I pulled off the sheet. I better tape this back down on the back side. To do that, I'll need some tape, which I didn't prepare, so excuse me that. Somebody's here. I was in shop last Saturday. Soka, you just missed me. I came in from Canada Saturday evening. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. They did a print party. So who was the staff on Saturday? I don't know. It was Kawai-san, maybe Mori-san. I don't remember who was here. I didn't see the staff schedule while I was away. So, but it was cool. I got a bunch of these emails over the past couple of weeks. You know, while I was in Canada, there were people who came for a print party. I wasn't here, and I got the general feeling. Somebody said, you know, disappointed not to meet you, and they all said the same thing. But they said, the staff did a really good job. I know. It seems we've, you know, got a bunch of nice people trained, and they're doing a good job with these parties. So that's the way it's going to go as we move forward. I can't do all the parties myself. There's a bit of a downside today. One of our semi-veteran staff members, Koizumi-san, today's his last day. While I was in Canada, he sent in an email quitting. He's going to leave. And it turns out it's not because he's unhappy or anything, and I don't know about money. He would never ask. They would never ask anyway. But it seems he got an offer for a real job. We're not able to offer full-time employment to all these people here yet at all. We're not that large yet. So we've got these people, Koizumi saying some part-time, working here 3, sometimes 4 days a week. And he got an offer of a real job, so he jumped at it. That was that. He's gone. After 6 months here, training, just to get good enough to do print parties. He can speak English fine, he can handle a print party by himself, and now, in a matter of days, he's gone. It's really, really frustrating, trying to train this group of people. It's really, really frustrating. Turnover. Okay, let's get going here. Find my hot spot where we're gonna do this under the scope. Absolutely, calligraphy like this is going under the scope. Not even any doubt about this part of it, which means the hot spot's going to be there. Let's zoom in. How close can we get? Those of you who are watching the stream yesterday, up doing the sizing, know that we put a second camera in place. I picked up another camera over the on Monday or Tuesday when I was just after I got back from Canada. And good news and bad news, we got a better camera than the handy cam I'm using for this. And it's clearer, it's cleaner, but it has a real problem. It won't freaking hold focus when it's shooting at something at an angle. I'm not sure if you can see what's going on. I've got the camera up there on a stand, looking down at my bench. And the bench here is at an angle, and the camera's coming in at an angle. And that makes it tough for some cameras to hold focus. And the new camera, the one that I really had high expectations of, will not hold focus on here. Cameron Sand and I will muck around with it later. We'll try and turn it onto manual focus and set it on this point and see if that helps. But this morning when I tried to set it up, it just wouldn't work. So we've got the new camera. When Cameron gets here this morning, we'll be using a different camera view when he gets here. But so anyway, we've got the old camera still going. Also, as an update, we've got the microscope camera coming. I've ordered now a camera that will go into the top of the microscope here. There's a C-mount here. So sometime along the way, while I'm carving this calligraphy over the next few weeks, we will have a microscope view. And as I sit here doing this, you will be able to look down there and see exactly what I'm doing. And that is going to be a bit scary for me because you can see right the point of the knife. It's also going to be a ton of fun. I sharpened the knife before we started here. Let's get going. Looking good. Computer struggling a bit. 3 cameras running. Let's go. We're going to do calligraphy like this in a bit of a 2-stage process. And rather than try and cut right with my knife right now the edge of every character, I'm going to go a little bit outside the lines. I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to rough out the areas, pull the waistward away, and then with a very fine sharpened point on my knife, we'll go back and cut the actual outlines. If I cut the lines now, if I went in here, for example, let's just find what, if I cut the line here, this is the actual calligraphy, leaving the wood and cutting it away. If I do it like this, there's no relief for the wood. The blade has to come into the wood and squeeze the wood on both sides. And that's not good when you're carving very fine lines. But if I've taken away the outside waist, like I'm doing here, this wood is going to be gone in a few minutes here. Let's just get rid of a piece now so you can see what's going on. The waist wood is gone. And now when I come back and carve the edge of this calligraphy, there's no stress on the line itself because the outside wood, let's just do this, the outside wood here, look at this, it's free to move. See that? The wood is just sliding away out into space and it's gone. So there was no stress whatsoever left on this line here. And when we come to print it, we throw water on here. This wood is not compressed at all and it doesn't change once we start printing. So it's a 2-stage process. And if I had apprentices here, this job that I'm doing right now, coming up close to the calligraphy, but not right to it, this would be an apprentice's job. Because it's perfect training. Look at this. Hand left, hand right, twist your wrist over. It's perfect training, but you can't bugger anything up. Even if you got it wrong, you're okay, because it's all going to be in the thrown away wood. So here we are. Dave is going to pretend he's an apprentice now. It's great training. And then if this was all done for me, I would just come in here and sit down and I would shave these letters one by one by one by one. But we don't have apprentices, so be it. I wonder though, talking about that, would it be acceptable to our fans, consumers, customers, whatever, just thinking out loud, just suppose this step, this apprentice stage, suppose this was done by a laser or a CNC machine or something. Suppose we did this mechanically, this roughing out part of the work, and then I came in and just did the actual carving of the lettering. Would that be acceptable to everybody? I don't know. It's sort of like what's the expression when you start doing something, creeping, thin end of the wedge. You start doing this, and later on you'd say, well, okay, we can get the laser a little bit closer, a little bit closer. eventually the laser just cuts the whole thing. That's not what we want to go to, so I don't know. It's a chilly, rainy day in Asakusa today, you know. The last few days we've had some nice spring-like weather for some of the few days. But it's not today. It's chilly out there. It's drizzling and cold. Slippery slope, yeah, that's the word I was trying to think of, I guess, whatever. The Yoshida question, the ink's changing as the print ages. There's a couple of things there, you know. The kind of prints that Yoshida was making with huge number of overlays, you know, there's 30, 40, 50, 60 overlays in them. There's many different levels of change there. And I found this myself with our experience of Shinhanga, even this year's series, working with Jed's Shinhanga designs this year. The change starts to happen actually within a few minutes. When you're doing ukiyo-e type prints, there's one color in one zone and there's a little bit of overlay, but not so many overlays. You don't get much change. What you mix in the bowl and you put on the paper is pretty much what you see as the print ages. There might be fading. Some pigments fade more than others. Like for example, if you put the print up in the sunlight, it will fade dramatically. The kind of change he was talking about in the book, and the kind of change we experience, is not so much with fading. It's the way that pigments sort of blend together as they go into the paper and as they settle down. And when you overlay once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, it's different. How can I say this? You pull the paper off, you print it and look at it. Okay, there it is. Then you put it under the stack. And when you come back even an hour later or an hour and a half later, the pigments have settled a bit and there's a bit of a different feeling in the tone. How the water seeps out into the paper and how the thing settles down. So within the first hour or so, there is clearly a difference in what it looks like. The color may seem deeper, darker, richer, weaker, more blotted, you know, more mottled, whatever. Then the next change that happens is when you dry the thing. And the easiest way to think about the analogy there is I got my jeans on right now. If I spill some water or something on part of my jeans, it goes to a sort of a darker, deeper blue color, the part that's wet. And then when you dry it out, it goes back to the normal blue color. You've all experienced that. Wet denim and dry denim. Actually, it's the same color in terms of where it is on a color wheel, but it looks quite different. And for us, of course, we make the prints on wet paper. Every minute of our work done with woodblock printing is done with the object in a wet state. And we then dry it, and it is now in the dry state. And we get the same kind of difference that you do when you see your jeans. Wet cloth and dry cloth have a different, totally different, it looks different. Now for us, we can't worry about that too much, but we do have to be aware of it. And all the colors on the print are changing in the same way. A wet print is brighter and deeper and richer, and sometimes it's disappointing. You make the print and think, yeah, that's what I want, that's good, oh, that looks cool, that's really nice. Then you throw it under the drying board, you come back the next morning and you think, what happened? Where's the print that I made? This has nowhere near as much richness. that's life. And over time, you get used to it, and you have to remember when you're actually doing the printing that the thing is not going to look as rich and as deep as it did when it's wet once you've dried it. But having said that, there's the other thing that happens with a Shin Hunger print, the one that Hiroshi Yoshida mentions, that over time, and I don't know why this happens or how it happens or what is changing chemically or whatever, the thing becomes more, it's less vivid, less saturated, and it becomes more, which way? Negative word, it becomes more bland. It becomes, the contrast range is reduced. It's more grayed out. The benefit to that is it becomes softer and smoother, and colors that might have been clashing with each other in a fresh state start to blend to each other more. What you can do about it is nothing. It's just something that happens to a woodblock print, and the more colors you overlay on it, the more paste you use. That's a factor. If you use way too much paste, that blending and blurriness starts to happen right at the beginning instead of waiting to happen over time. Another factor too with the Yoshida family prints is a lot of the paper they used, was not the highest quality. They ordered paper, and they are still doing this now. They order paper with X% pulp mixed in. And that really dramatically changes the way that the paper ages. The paper literally starts to go toned and go brown and oxidizes much faster than a pure mulberry fiber paper does. So a lot of the Yoshida prints published during my lifetime, since the 80s, when I saw them doing this when I came here in the middle 80s. The prints will not last as long as traditional ukiyo-e prints because they're made on a paper with a high level of pulp inside. They call it hankusa. Hankusa, han, half, kusa, grass. Half grass. I don't know why that's the expression to use. And there's a lot of very brown Yoshida prints out there, especially ones that Westerners bought in the 50s and 60s and 70s, took home to Europe or America, put in a frame and hung on the wall, and now they are brown. And you see them on auctions all the time. The ones with the huge matte burn all the way around, where part of the paper's been under a mat. We had a fun visitor here yesterday afternoon. I'm not sure if I'm 100% allowed to talk about all the details of the visit, but I think it's okay. It was a young lady who works at the British Museum. And she's at the moment in Japan on a trip to inspect different copies of the Great Wave print that are here in different museums. I think she's been doing this all over the world. She's like gone to France and Italy and something. She went to a museum in Italy to see one of the copies that's in a museum in Genoa there. And now she's here in Japan. There's a copy of the Great Wave in the Tokyo National Museum. And I think there's one in the Ota Memorial Museum. And she's going over to look at them. And her particular reason for being here, her particular field of study is she's a scientist, an engineer. And her field is pigments. So she's it's interesting. I asked her, what do? You take them back to London with you? They let you borrow this and you put it under a giant machine or whatever? And she was saying, no, she carries the machine with her. I didn't get scientific details. She's got something with her that she goes to look at these prints on permission with the museum people. And she said this is non-destructive. She's got some kind of light reader and some kind of light thing. So she shines a certain kind of light onto the top of the print, inspects in her reader
the reflection or whatever of this light coming up, and that gives her some sort of maybe spectrographic analysis or whatever. I don't know the dirty details. And she can tell, oh, that's Prussian blue from Germany from the era 1830s or 1840s or whatever, stuff like this. She's got some real nifty, portable, high-tech stuff to do this. And her, as I said, her specific area of interest is the analysis of the pigments in the old Edo era prints. Specifically, they're working with Hokusai's 36 views of Fuji, one of the earliest examples of use of Prussian blue in Japanese printmaking. So she's going all over the place. She spent the last couple of days over at the Tokyo National Museum, and now she's going to Oda Memorial. I think that was her plan today. Then somewhere else, and somewhere else, and somewhere else. And she knows of my interest in this. I'm not so interested in all those pigments and stuff. I don't chase details of that. I don't really care about that part of it. But she and I have been corresponding about the fact that I think a lot of these were carved from different blocks, and she thinks it might be the same block, and stuff like that. So it was great fun yesterday to have her here and show her some examples, like the one I did in the tiny little bit of a show and tell we did yesterday. The fact that one publisher who was publishing the same, in quotes, the same print over a period of 30 years would be doing so with, in the case we were looking at yesterday, 5 different block sets. So this leaves her thinking, you know, she's not quite so confident anymore about what some of the prints they have in the British Museum are. Anyway, great fun discussion. Doi-san was here, our associate Doi-san, and we just chatted about this stuff for hours and hours and hours. She finally had to get out of here, getting too late. But it was really good fun. Very interesting. So I guess she's preparing some kind of research paper to discuss the use of pigments in Japanese ukiyo-e of the 1830s, whatever. I don't know a specific title for it. Any bets on when the whole block of calligraphy is going to be finished? 2019, 2020, 2021? How far can you get with this? there's some stuff here that's really interesting. I don't know if it's going to be visible. I don't know. Let's see. Can we see this? Okay, maybe we can. What you're seeing here, this is the line that was the original octopus line. Not the line I carved. This is a reproduction right now. These lines here are from the original book. We've pasted them on the block here to carve. So the black line you're seeing here is the original line at the end of the octopus. These are the calligraphy lines, of course. And there's a couple of things here. See on the octopus body line here, there's a gap. And see on this calligraphy line here, this is the character for one, Ichi. There's a gap in it. And these are both mistakes. These are both places where the carver has banged the line. And what he's done is this. Like you guessed it, he first carved the shape of the octopus. That line was carved normally. Blah, 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 blah. Then he came back and started to work on the calligraphy. And on the original print, the calligraphy is on the same block as the shape of the octopus. It's the key block. I've split them onto two different blocks. But the original one, they were on the same block. So, okay, you get the idea. He's done. He's carved this octopus line straight and clear. No problem. Now he's coming along. Let me turn this upside down. He's coming along later, running this calligraphy. He or one of the apprentices or whatever, who knows, I've got no idea. He comes along, he's carving, carving, carving. Look at this line. This line comes down here straight. He's carved this line and gone down the line and oops, and he's banged into the edge of the octopus here and chipped out a little part of the line. It might have happened when he carved this, or it might have happened when his knife came round. Probably this way. He was right-handed, so I'm not sure about which way it would have been. He would carve there, and bang, just a little bit too far, and out comes part of the octopus. Should he fix it? Give me a break. This was a cheap, fast, quick and dirty porn book. They just went going on. And you can see here, you can see where this is going. Look at this. That gap matches exactly, see it right there? So carving this thing, he did the same thing. It would have been the other way around. He's got his knife sliding up through here, and just a tiny bit too far, out he goes, and pops this. And a chip comes out of that line. And when I've been inspecting this thing, getting ready for printing, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of those all over this print. They're everywhere, places where they bang and they bang and they bang all over the place. This was a really, really super fast, quick and dirty job. Let me see if I can identify just a couple more, because they are everywhere. They are everywhere. There's another one here. If this is again, it's a photocopy of the original. Where am I here? Get it here? See the line here? This is the line of the baby octopus head. Normally it would have been carved straight through. There's a gap in it, and that gap coincides exactly with where this one comes down. So this line would have been carved first, and doing this one, he comes down. Oops, a little bit too fast. Who cares? Out she goes. Everywhere, 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 there are things like this. Chips and pops and cracks. The speed those guys worked at must have just been insane. What I'm doing here, nibbling along, they would have just shaken their head in disgust. There's another one there. There's a little V there. It must have been when he came around the edge of one of these. Another one here. See this? There's the coo, coo, choo, choo, and there's a gap in it, and that gap coincides exactly with where this line is. Another one here. Another one right here. This is not calligraphy. There we are. There's a line here and another line, and there's a niche, a little notch taken out of it, and it's exactly at the point where that thing hits. You just don't see those notches in other places, but you always see them right where there's another line ready to impact. It was all for those guys. It was all about the speed. Speed, speed, speed. So for me, when I come along, of course, this character for Ichi, am I going to take a notch out of it? No, of course not. I'm just going to try and carve it as I can. You know? I gave the impression that the art of the game gave the impression that Dave did all the printing himself. Was that the case at the time? Yes or no? I've been doing this now for 34 years here in Japan. For the first 25 years, up till 1980, no, I started in 1986, up until 1990, no, up until 20, get my numbers right, dude. For the first 25 years, I worked as a solo craftsman. I did all the carving of every print I published. I did all the printing, 200 copies, 300 copies, whatever. I did everything by myself. There was nobody else here. That was about 2012 or so. I started to hire people and train them. We started with a bunch of housewives, ladies out in Ome. Tsushima-san, who's still with us, Ishigami-san, who's still with us doing a different job. Who came next? Ayumi Miyashita, I can't remember the order they came in. I started to hire people and train them with the idea that we would build an actual publishing workshop rather than just a one-man workshop. So starting in 2012 or late 2011, I'm not exactly sure which it was, there are other people on board here. At that point, I was still the main printer and the main carver, but there were now other people involved. And we distinguished the work by the new work that was done by the other people together with me went out under the Moko Hankan label. My own work had always just gone under my own name, and I also used the Sesaragi Studio name for my own published work. But it went with my own name and my own signature and everything on it. And in the years since then, it has now gradually morphed. From 2012 up to right now, this is a team workshop. I do almost no work start to finish by myself. I do almost no printing now by myself. I'm one of the 3 carvers here. Myself, Kawasaki-san, and John-san are the carvers here, and we have a full printing team. When you order an Ukiyo-e Heroes print, even the one that was shown in that documentary, you do not get a copy printed by me. You get a copy printed by one of our staff printers. And their name's on it. The print that was in that documentary, A Young Man Shakes Heaven, the latest batch of it was printed by our printer, Kanai-san, and her name is on the outside of it. What you saw in that documentary was me doing the proof printing, because at that point, and that was when was that documentary made? 2016, 2017? It was filmed in 2016, I guess. At that point, I was still doing all the proof printing and the first batch of each of the Heroes prints. So what you saw was a realistic viewpoint. David was the guy who finished carving the blocks and then switched to doing the proof printing of that. Now, I no longer even do the proof printing. In fact, you'll see in a couple of days, we're going to put up a new video which shows the proof printing of the one that we call Two Souls Entwined, the newest one in the Ukiyo-e Heroes. And the proof printing for that was done by Sugu-san, our in-house printer upstairs. Cameron took a bunch of video of her while she was doing it, and I am now, tonight or tomorrow, going to put the narration in, and you'll see how it goes. So yeah, it's a bit confusing. It's changed over the years. I used to do everything myself, and now we are a larger team workshop. But all the larger prints, everything except the small postcard prints, all the larger prints have the names on them. They've got the name of the carver and the name of the printer. In fact, this year's subscription series too, the Japan Journey prints, they're all the same. Print number 1, it says carved by David Bull, printed by one of our 3 staff printers who did that job. And the Great Wave we're doing now, for example, when you order the Great Wave from us, you get the print and the embossing on the side says, designed by Katsushika Hokusai, carved by David Bull, and printed by, and then one of our staff printers, the young boy Yamamoto-san, is doing our current batches of that. I remember actually thinking about that when I first started the Moko Hankan idea to work with other craftsmen. I thought really hard and long about it. There was one thing that was really bothering me. I was really proud, I still am, I'm really proud of that 25 years of doing the carving and printing all by myself. You know, something that isn't really done traditionally in Japan. It's usually carvers and printers separate. So I was, and still am, hugely and fiercely proud of that work I did over those 25 years. And when I was thinking about starting Mokuhankan, I thought, there might be a problem here. Good morning, Cameron-san. Hi. I thought there might be a problem here, that once I put out even one print that is printed by somebody else, carved by Dave and printed by somebody else, once I do that even once, then hundreds of years in the future, people will think, oh, Dave, he didn't do his stuff by himself. He carved and he hired printers to do his work. So it would erase the value from the 25 years of work that I did do by myself. I'm answering a question on the thing. So, you know, did somebody saw the documentary? And Dave is doing the printing on that in the documentary. I do all the printing. And no, I don't do all the printing on the computer. And I still am a little bit unsure that I do the right thing by opening Mokuhankan. Because the 25 years when I did it all by myself, I have those skills. There's now a big question mark on it for the future. Dave, I saw the video, you know, he carves and somebody else printed it. He didn't do all that stuff by himself. And yet for 25 years, I did do all that stuff by myself.
Yeah.
Okay, what do we got? Cameron's joined us here. There's a bunch of new people here. This is cameraman Cameron, whatever. I know, I've got, over there, look.
Yep.
So it's not turned on, it's not on yet, but what we're going to do here, we're going to... I can't do too much. Let's turn this first, and it's up to you. You can switch the camera over. The thing up there is called Magewell 2.
Okay, Magewell.
And at the moment it's turned off, so if we can successfully rotate this thing first...
Oh, I'm so scared to touch it.
Yeah.